Hello, welcome to another episode of Bob's Woodshop. Today we got something special. I just have finished restoring this Stanley number 8 joiner plane. It came out really nice. And I've never really been much of a hand plane guy, but I recently have been watching a lot of these restoration videos and I think it's pretty cool. So I've only really had a couple different hand planes, but recently I started getting some more and restoring these, and today I'm going to show you how to do this. And so let's get started, and I'll show you how we did it.
So first things first, I want to give a big shout out to my good buddy Joe Kopek of the New Jersey Woodturners. He donated this plane to me for this video, and this was his father's plane. It was actually in pretty good shape. It didn't really have a whole lot of rust. The wood was in good shape, and it really just needed a good cleaning. So once I took it apart, I put some stripper on here called the citrus strip. I let it bake on there overnight, and then after that I just went after it with a bunch of these different types of wire wheels, both brass and these steel ones. I did the sides and the sole of the plane on my brass wheel, which you'll see a little bit later, but for some reason I don't know what happened to that video. So if you're thinking this is an easy job to do, it's not really tough, but it is a dirty job. And if you're sanding and grinding and removing paint and rust, it is kind of messy, so be prepared for that. Here's the little grinder that I was talking about. And I got all the steel parts on this, and actually the brass parts also, with this wire wheel. And I also have another wire wheel on my lathe, and this is one of the brass ones. And there wasn't a whole lot of pitting on the iron, the chip breaker, or the lever cap. So these three parts I probably took about 10 or 15 minutes. It wasn't real tough at all. I would suggest to you, if you've never done one of these projects, give it a go. I think there's a bit of zen to this. It's really nice taking a piece of history like this, cleaning it up and getting it tuned up in order to be a usable tool. I do plan to use this, and later on you're going to see that this thing is razor sharp and makes very nice shavings. Here I'm applying a little bit of buffing compound. I think this is something that I got over at Home Depot years ago. This light polishing compound. And like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of rust on this to begin with, so it shined up pretty easily without too much effort. You'll notice that I'm wearing gloves, and I highly recommend, if you're doing any polishing or using the wire wheels, definitely use gloves and eye protection. As a matter of fact, in a lot of this I was actually wearing my face shield, not just my usual magnifying glasses that I use. I have not too bad eyesight, so I use usually a 1.25 lenses. You can see how nice this cleans up between the wire wheel and the buffing wheel. Here I'm going to start going after the lever cap. Now watch this, how easily this goes on and gets fixed. So very light rust, no pitting. This particular plane does not have the name Stanley on the lever cap. And take it right to the buffing wheel. And I'm not doing the entire thing right now. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, and obviously spend a few more minutes doing the entire thing. Look how nice that shines up. Man, I love that. On the sides and the sole, all I really did for this was I used my little pneumatic sander and some 400 grit sandpaper and sanded the sides, the bottom, and I was very impressed and excited that the sole of the plane was already perfectly flat, so I did not have to spend any time trying to flatten this thing. I was really happy about that. So once I polished it, all I really had to do was do some of this masking in order to prepare for painting. And the painting I did, as you know, a nice fire engine red. In order to do the brass wheel, I just put a screw through it. You could use a bolt, and I just let it spin around while I've got it on my lathe and another smaller brass wire wheel. This shines up very easily and really only takes maybe 2 minutes. Not a problem at all. In order to do the wood, I used this little inflatable drum sander on my lathe. And this wasn't the only thing. I actually started with scraping this with a regular card scraper to get the old varnish off. I also used, again, my little pneumatic sander and did some hand sanding and took it up to about 320. After this, I put a coat of gel stain on it, let that dry, and once it was dry, then I went ahead and put about 4 or 5 coats of spray lacquer on there. Overall, this project took about 3 or 4 days. Wasn't in a big hurry. Waited overnight for the stripper to work on the Japanning, and it just wasn't in a big hurry. In order to get the iron flat, I used my little Woodshop device. In the last restoration video, I said I didn't really like the result, but I was using that wheel that's on the background there. I put the flat wheel on. It's a flat glass wheel and a 220 grit, and that worked really well. So I've got a newfound respect for the Woodshop. I also recently purchased a Trend 300/1000 Sharpening Stone. This is a diamond stone, and this thing gets this iron very sharp. It was almost scary to touch this. I'm kind of using the Rob Cosman process here in order to get the back even a little bit more flat, and then raise it up slightly to get a micro bevel on the back side, and then I did the same on the primary bevel and the secondary bevel. So in order to test this, I very gently used my finger as well as some paper and went right through it. Once the paint was applied, I obviously had to remove the masking tape, and you can see I put some screws in the screw holes so no paint would go into the screw holes. I also did a little bit of work on the bottom of the frog there. Actually, that's the top of the frog. So again, not in a hurry, just go about my business, taking care of all these individual parts. Planes are really not all that complex. You just have to take your time, address each part one at a time, and it's really actually a pretty simple process. Once I got this tape off, I actually applied some more metal polish on to see if I can get it a little bit shinier. And here I'm getting ready to put the whole thing back together. With that paper towel, I'm taking off a little bit of the polishing compound that I used. I got all my parts laid out. First things first, you got to put the wood back on. You do not put the frog on first. Don't ask me how I know that. So right now it's looking pretty good. Only need a couple screwdrivers. Make sure, especially if you're doing more than one of these, you keep all the parts separated. I was able to do that on this one, and it worked out pretty well. Okay, so that handle is secure. I'll work on the front knob. Get that screwed in. I did actually spray a little bit of oil in the screw holes. So the next guy who's going to repair this in another 20, 30, or 50 years, these screws will come right out. And actually, quite honestly, these screws came out easily when I took it apart. Okay, so when you're putting the frog in, I'm going to be honest with you. I initially put the frog right up next to the mouth, and that's not where you put it. You put it about 1/8 of an inch back from the mouth, and that gives you a good starting point. And later on you can make some adjustments with the little adjustment screw on the back. Like I said, I'm not really a hand plane guy, but I have been learning about it, and it does take a little bit of finagling and adjustment of getting the frog in the right position, as well as the plane iron, in order to get good shavings. So be very careful when putting the chip breaker onto the iron. You certainly don't want to hurt your nice sharp edge. And you put the chip breaker just behind the cutting edge, maybe a 32nd of an inch. Both have to be flat, otherwise shavings can go in between. So be very careful, make sure both surfaces are completely flat. I'm putting on the lever cap screw. And then the lever cap, make an adjustment. The lever cap should just snap on. It should not be real tough. You should not have to push that down very hard. Here's a mistake I made. Do not put the brass adjustment knob on at the end. Put that on before you put the frog in place. Otherwise, it's very difficult to screw that on. Okay, and now for the moment of truth. I took the sound out of this, and I should not have, but the shavings that were coming off of this just sounded terrific. They were a couple thousandths of an inch thick, and on the face grain of this piece of walnut, I'm starting to get some gossamer shavings, those really nice thin ones. So this was extremely satisfying. I am into hand planes now. Look how nice and thin that is. So that's really what you want to get to. So here's a few shots of after, here again, what it looked like before I started the project.
Okay, so here it is one last time. It came out very nice, nice and shiny. And I want to thank you one more time for spending a little bit of your day with me. If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you on another episode of Bob's Woodshop. Thanks a lot. Stay safe in your shop.